Awesome. Uh, so I think all of us as PMs have to influence people that we have no authority over every single day. And as we want to grow in our careers, it becomes even more important to solve more complex problems by influencing the roadmap of more and more number of people across the organization. And the ability to influence people makes or breaks careers. And early in my career, I'm going to use my career story to talk about why this matters to me. For the first 8 years of my career, I was a manager leading engineering teams and IT departments and other functions in a company called Video Mining. And over there, I was very productive, but I realized that I was leading from a place of positional power. It was only when I moved as an individual contributor to large tech companies as a product manager that I realized that I lacked the skills to influence without authority. And I started to hit walls, even though I was producing outstanding results. It was coming at the cost of relationships and organizational trust in me. And that is when I started to learn more about and understand how great leaders influence people and organizations without having any positional authority over people. And over the last 7 years, I've pulled together a playbook for myself that I try to apply every single day. And my goal here is to share those learnings with you all so that you can get most of the benefit in 10% of the time investment and a 10x the rate that I grew in. So I have had the experience of working at Yahoo, Yelp, and then Meta. And over the course of the time, I have applied these same principles to my own career, and I've started to have more positive impact on people, along with actually like having product outcomes that I've been driving along the way. So let's start with defining what influence without authority is in the first place. Influence without authority is the process of earning every single decision that needs to be made. And these could be very small decisions, like which metric do we use to measure the success of our product in a conversation with your data scientist? Or it could be pretty large company defining decisions, like what strategic investments should we be making to address the platform shifts that are happening right at this moment. It could be in one-on-one conversations with a colleague that is in passing, or it could be in a small peer group of your own team that you're trying to influence, or the leadership of your org or company leadership that is trying to rationalize decisions across multiple organizations. When you do influence without authority, right, it should do a bunch of things. People should do something because it is the right thing to do for the company. People should do something because it is the best trade-off that can be made among tough choices that we constantly have. People should do it because it's in the best interest of the collective. And people should understand why they are doing something that is being asked of them. People should feel inspired to be doing things that they're being asked to do. And people should feel respected and valued. And when you do influence without authority, right, people should trust you more and they should want to work more with you in the future. And that's what influence without authority gets you. And what makes influence without authority hard? It is that all of us work with extremely talented people who have diverse opinions, who see a piece of the picture and have strong voices. And getting them all to align behind one direction is actually like hard. A lot of the times that the decisions that we're trying to make are extremely complex. There's no easy solutions. It's not cut and dry. Everything is the trade-off that is nuanced. And then the third thing is that most of the work that we do these days is across organizations. To do anything that we want, we need to actually like get alignment between multiple teams who have different goals that they're trying to accomplish. And we're trying to get alignment across these organizations. And we're trying to do this with the people who we have just met newly. And that is what makes influence without authority hard. So what can we do to build skills to actually like make influence without authority a lot more concrete and things that you can actually like get better at? So there are 5 key principles that I have tried to codify for myself that I try to go and then debug every time I make a mistake. So the 5 things are: 1 is mindset, 2 is relationships, 3 is processes, 4 is skills, and then 5 are leveraging reviews. So I'm going to like talk through a few of these and then give a couple of tips about what the fundamental shifts are that are going to help you get better with influence without authority. On mindset. So I think the first part of it is that you need to establish credibility in order to be able to influence people without authority. And what does that really mean? It means that people need to believe that I am willing to do the right thing for the group rather than push my own agenda. And once you have that mindset, it earns you the credibility to be able to influence other people. So what are the kinds of things that you can actually like think about? One is that influence is not about peddling your agenda, but it is about helping a group of people solve a problem together. And I think that that's a fundamental mindset shift that I had to go through to get better with influence. It's about making an informed decision by understanding all of the different perspectives in the room and actually like making the right set of trade-offs. And then in order for me to be able to influence people, I need to be willing to change my own mind in the face of new information when I think that I'm wrong and somebody else is right. And changing that mindset, one, brings me to the group with the right frame of reference and gives me the credibility that people are willing to change their mind if they need to. The second big mindset shift is that it's about developing a shared vision or a shared point of view. It's not about my idea or somebody else's idea. It's not about ownership of my idea of winning in this space, but it is about how do we as a group come together to solve a problem together, have a shared vision, have a shared plan that we all believe in. And giving up that ownership is actually like what creates the environment for us to be able to influence others. So one of the things to think about is, even though you might be the one who might have the idea first, or you might be seeing something first, it just means that other people have not yet actually like seen that perspective, and you need to give them the time and space and walk them through to get to the same place. And it then becomes their idea. It's not your idea anymore, but it's their idea as well. And I think that that mindset shift is actually really critical to be able to influence people. Then the second thing that is really important is influence is all about relationships. And there are a few different aspects of relationships that I want to put the filter on for you all to think about. The first one is that we need to influence people who we have just met. So how do we do that? How do we build trustful relationships with people who we have just been thrown into cauldron of hard decisions and we need to actually like work together on? So there's a trust hierarchy that you can actually like think about. And the first set of things are much easier to get to, and the later things are much harder to get to and then take time. So you can always make sure that people understand that you care about them. It is super easy to do. So I could just say, hey, this is the first time I'm meeting Rishi, but I can say, hey, Rishi, you have this vision of actually like getting good product speakers to talk and then actually like share their learnings with the rest of the people. I understand that. Thank you for actually like making space for that and giving me a chance to do that. It's like an easy way to show that I care about Rishi in this particular moment in time. And I could ask questions and actually like listen to what his outcomes are. And it's an easy way for me to make sure that I build a trusting relationship on a strong foundation with him. Then the second thing that you can do to earn trust is to be a great listener. So everybody has a different perspective and a different set of problems that are actually like trying to solve. If you can listen well and then make sure that people feel that you understand them really well, that's actually like a great stepping stone to earning trust. People should feel that you're going to represent them accurately, even when they're not in the room. And that is actually like a place that you can earn trust pretty easily. You can, in a conversation, say, hey, this is what I'm hearing you say. This is what your concerns are. These are what your perspectives are. This is what you want out of this outcome. And did I understand that accurately? And by doing that, you actually earn the trust of the person that you really understand them. Then when that person is not in the room, represent them 100% accurately. And if you do that, you earn their trust that you're actually like going to represent them well. And then you can actually like earn this process of being a collaborator. You can earn the reputation that you are there for the best of the group versus your own self, and demonstrate that in small ways. Give credit to other people. If it is somebody else's idea, give them credit and say, hey, this person brought up this idea and it's a great idea. And I think that we should actually like think about that more. And by doing that, you establish that you're in it for the group. You're actually like trying to help everybody else shine, and you actually like want this group to succeed together. And that is a way that you can actually like earn trust very quickly. And then finally, like you want to be establishing yourself as a thought leader and someone who produces results, but that actually like takes a lot of time. But all of these early steps you can actually like do quickly to earn trust with one person or with a group of people. So that's the hierarchy that you can think about, and then see where do you get your quick trust wins. Then the second thing, which is kind of a part of what I just talked about, is that we work with extremely talented and opinionated XFN partners, whether they're in design, whether they're in engineering, whether they're in user research or product marketing. And then if we elevate those people, include them earlier, and I've worked on areas where legal and policy are actually like subject matter experts. So if you're working on teen well-being, or if you're working on integrity or safety, policy people are actually like the subject matter experts. So including them early on, treating them with the respect that they deserve, that, hey, you are the subject matter experts, bringing them into the process of product development helps you earn reputation, earns you actually like the credibility that you need to be able to influence them on product direction at a later point in time. Then the third important thing that I learned over time is that as PMs, we work with a lot of XFN functions, and all of these functions start to overlap as you become more senior in your career. So design, engineering, research, data science, all actually have value contributing to product strategy as actually like a fundamental evaluation lever for whether you can actually like grow up in your careers. If you want to go from IC5 to IC6 as an engineer, you need to actually like demonstrate product strategy skills at Meta. The same thing with design and same thing with research. If you want to go from 6 to 7, it's actually like even more higher that your influence on product strategy and execution needs to start to shine across these functions. So early in my career, I used to view that as competitive, but now I actually like view that as, hey, it makes our team much more stronger. It gives me more time and opportunity if all of these people can step in and then lead different pieces of the puzzle for me to actually like create a bigger puzzle together with all of these people. And that mindset shift and creating opportunities for our XFN partners to step in and then shine on all of these areas that we think are our job is actually one of the key shift with respect to building better relationships. So earning trust, two is actually like leveraging and amplifying our XFN partners. And then 3 is not viewing them as competitive, but actually like understanding that our roles overlap and then actually like creating space for them is what builds this amazing set of relationships that helps you eventually influence everybody. Then the third thing, or the third principle, is around processes. Influence is not something that you do in one meeting with some amazing presentation that you do. It's a long process that you work through to get a bunch of people to start having a shared vision and having a shared set of principles, a shared plan that they can all get behind. And it's a process that takes time. So the first part of it is build in a lot of lead time and detailed planning on how are you going to influence a group of people in something. So everything takes longer than what you think it is going to take. So give yourself more time than you normally think. Then think about what are the different modes of collaboration that you need to be able to accomplish the type of outcome that you want. Is it a small thing where it's incremental to the thinking that already exists? Or is it a larger paradigm shift that needs alignment across a larger set of people across different layers of your company? And if that is the case, then what are the different types of collaboration that you need to have? When do you need to have async meetings, collaboration on documents, and when do you need to have synchronous communication with a larger group of people? And how do you leverage one-on-ones to influence key stakeholders to understand their concerns and as well as change their minds? So think about what is this process that you need to lay out to be able to influence people to get the outcome that you want. Then the third thing is every influence process has a list of decisions that we are trying to get alignment behind. Being very clear about what those decisions are that we are trying to make and documenting those, what is the current understanding and alignment between people, and continuing to do that over time is something that's really critical to the process itself. And then the last thing is that leadership reviews are a forcing function. People can keep talking forever, but when there's a deadline and there's a forcing function that we need to get to on the same page, it forces everybody to actually have the hard conversations and actually get to alignment. So that is something to keep thinking about. So you need a plan to be able to get alignment with a set of people. Then run great inclusive processes. Think about actually when people would perceive it to be inclusive versus not. Think about the different modalities. So there was this point in time where I thought that I wanted to run inclusive processes, and I set up recurring daily meetings to get a group of people together to work through a problem that we were doing. But what I found out later was that people found that to be not inclusive because the time was not going to work for everybody. People could not make some of those meetings, and every time they missed a meeting, they felt that a key decision was made when they couldn't actually make the meeting. So figure out actually when, how each meeting would be perceived. Should you actually be getting async feedback on a document so that everybody has a chance to contribute to it, so that then you can actually take only hard decisions into a synchronous meeting to actually get alignment? And when it's a key decision, then you need to make sure that the time works for everyone. Think about how to make sure that it feels inclusive to everyone. The worst thing you can do is think that you are being inclusive, but other people feel that it's not been an inclusive process. Then the last thing is to create psychological safety. At any point in time, you have people who are at different levels in their career, who are at different functions in their career, and there's different power dynamics at play in any room that you have. And as a PM, our job is to actually make sure that there's psychological safety, that every opinion can actually come out. And we can enable that by setting the ground rules for different types of conversations. When is it a brainstorming meeting where all ideas are on the table and we're actually not passing judgment on them? And then when is it a point where you need to be crisp about, hey, here are the 3 options that we have, and let's actually not get detailed in the conversation. Let's focus on these 3 things. Let's actually focus on the trade-offs between them, and then let's get a decision. It's our job as PMs to create psychological safety by setting the ground rules of how we're actually going to engage in our conversations. So clear lead time and planning, inclusive processes, and creating psychological safety. And then the 4th thing is around having clear decision-making frameworks. Every decision fundamentally works down to what are the options that you have and what are the criteria that you're going to use to evaluate them, and then what trade-offs do you have to make. And fundamentally, everything literally boils down to this. For example, here is a trade-off spreadsheet that my wife made after listening to me constantly talk about decision by traffic lights. She made this as a joke, but it helped us actually make our decision on which washer dryer we are going to buy. So she made the list of, hey, here are the brands, here are the models, where can you buy it from? What is the price? What is the depth? Because the depth was actually what a constraint was for us. What features does it have? What is the color so it blends into our room? And when is the delivery date? Because the delivery date was important for us. And then actually we just laid that out. And then we picked a choice that actually was the right set of trade-offs between price and then the color that we wanted and the delivery date that was available to us. And every decision boils down to this, whether it is a small thing like buying a washer dryer, or it's a big decision that should we be banning somebody off of our platform? It literally boils down to what are our options and what is our framework and how do we understand that well so that we can make an informed choice. And once you see this, you can't actually turn it off, because how can you do this in one-on-one conversations? An engineer comes to you and say, hey, should we be making this decision? And then immediately you can start putting this framework in your mind and say, hey, let's talk about what our options are. Okay, it looks like we have option A, B, C for solving this problem. And how do we want to make this decision? We need to like think about some form of cost. We're going to think about some form of what is the user experience going to be. And then maybe let's say there's a consumer experience and there's an advertiser experience. And then what is the trade-off between them? You can start applying this framework in verbal conversations with people. And then actually you can apply that in documented form. And then in order to actually like influence people, there is the mindset, processes, relationships. And then the fourth part of it is skills that you need to be able to influence people without authority. Here are the things. I think the first thing is emotional intelligence. And this was a hard one for me because 7 years ago, I had my lack of emotional intelligence was costing me a lot in my career. And I had to figure out how to actually like improve that. And the fundamental definition for me is it's the ability to drive positive outcomes in high stakes situations without letting anyone's emotions hijack the conversations. I think that's fundamentally like what it comes down to. And how can you improve your emotional intelligence tangibly? So there's a lot of times where we are in conversations and we start to get frustrated by people. We're actually like getting fidgety and all of these things. So how do you actually like improve your emotional intelligence? There's a few things that you can actually do. One is to understand your own triggers. So what are the things that actually like trigger you? So for me, at some point in time, the triggers used to be around overlaps in what I thought were job responsibilities between different functions. There was the trigger of, hey, why do I need to explain even the smallest of decisions to people? Or I would be like, hey, I'm seeing this so clearly. Why can't you guys see this right away? So all of these were my triggers, and your triggers could be completely different. But the first part of it is to understand those triggers so that you can actually like start mitigating them. The second thing is that having self-compassion. Every time we make a mistake, it actually like gets compounded and we lose our ability to manage ourselves because we made a mistake in the past. Like developing self-compassion is a great way to improve our own emotional intelligence. Then a few other kinds of things are around being well, having good sleep hygiene, making sure that you're actually getting enough time and you're actually like not burnt out, and then in going into crucial conversations, planning for your own crucial conversations. How are you going to actually like make sure that you focus on the outcome versus what you want to say? All of these are things that actually like help with emotional intelligence. The second thing is listening skills. One of the most important lessons I learned was when I was at Meta was Will Cathcart is currently the head of WhatsApp, and then he used to be the head of Facebook app at that point in time. And I was sitting in a series of reviews of which were high stakes, which had a bunch of VPs in them all the time. And each of them had like strong opinions on actually like what needed to be done. Will would listen to everything that was being said and then calmly reframe the whole conversation by making sure that everybody's perspectives were accounted for, and then actually like reframe the entire problem in a way in which it can actually like clearly help with making clear decisions. And that was a turning point for me in saying that, hey, listening skills are one of the fundamental levers to be a better leader. And then I started to figure out, okay, what are the things that matter in becoming a better listener? The first part of actually becoming a better listener is to be 100% present. A lot of times when somebody comes and then starts talking to us, we're actually half someplace else. We're thinking about what we want to do after this person leaves, or what we were doing before this person came to talk to us, versus giving 100% of us to the other person. I think that's the starting point, being 100% present. Then the second thing is the 3-second rule, which is not saying anything for 3 seconds after the person has actually like stopped talking, which gives your mind a chance to actually like process what the other person said, and then think about what do they need in response to what they said, and how do we actually like articulate that. And then the third thing is just replay back what you heard so that you've accurately like internalized what is it that the people really need. Sometimes doing that helps you understand, do people want help with figuring out a solution? Do people want us to just empathize with them, or actually like just be a sounding board for them to just talk through their own process with us? And replaying that is a great way to actually like do it. And the fourth listening skill is actually like to do this with multiple people in the room. You're having a meeting with 10 people, and then being able to listen to all 10 people well, and then synthesize it and say, hey, there seems to be 3 different opinions in this room. A and B have this opinion, C and D have this opinion, E and F have this other opinion. And if you can do that, you just become so much more influential and powerful in a group, because you are able to actually like synthesize and actually like provide a clear framing for people to make decisions. For me, one of the things that made me a much better listener is going to improv. Improv is like going to the gym for listening skills. So if you have not done it, please try that out. And it's going to like really amplify your listening skills. The third thing is speak precisely. I'm going to share an experience of mine. I think it was in 2014. I was interviewing for Fitbit. I really wanted to work at Fitbit. And I did a phone screen with the VP of product at that time. And he'd asked me a simple question. Hey, how do you do like sprint planning in your company or something along those lines? Some super simple question. I spoke about it for like 25 minutes. And that was the last interview I had with Fitbit. And the recruiter actually like told me that the person was so frustrated with my rambling on that he did not want to speak to me again. And that was the end of the interview process for me. In some form, that was a turning point for me with respect to changing how I spoke completely. And speaking precisely is a great skill with respect to anything that we want to do. If people can't understand exactly what you want, then you get nowhere. So what can you do to become a better speaker? So first is think before you speak. Know exactly what outcome you want to get, and what words do you need to say so that you get the outcome you want. And I think that that's the step one. Think before you speak. Then the second thing is focus on what outcome you want, what feelings you want to generate out of people, versus whatever is the heck your mind feels like you need to say at this point in time. I think that the second mindset shift, it's really about the outcomes and how people feel versus what you really want to say. And that was actually a very clear thing. Then the third thing is speak like how you write. When a lot of us write, we are much more succinct, organized in how we frame points. We say, here is the TLDR of what we're trying to say, and here are our rationale for why we think this is the right solution. So we have a very clear way of writing, and we need to speak like that as well. We say we should speak, hey, this is what it is. This is why we think it's going to be. And you need to allow spacing for people to be able to process that. And then the last thing is say it once and stop. And those are the things to actually like speak more precisely. The other skill is collaborative writing. So writing together is a great way to actually like drive alignment. And the way that it works is that you just put out a skeleton of a document which says, okay, here's the outcomes we're trying to drive. Here are the different things that we need to address. Let's actually like work on this together, and then bring a bunch of people together. And everybody starts to put in things together that kind of actually becomes a brainstorming of all of the considerations that need to go in together. And you start to get like an amorphous blob of actually like what it should be. Then you can start to structure it better and actually like pull in a narrative that starts to like work together. Then you put it out there again and get feedback from people on, hey, what am I missing? What other things should we be thinking? And then feedback starts to come back into it. And what it does is does a few things. One is it drives ownership. Anytime people have actually like given feedback multiple times of a document, they see that idea as their own. They see the document as their own thing. And that ownership drives influence automatically. Then the second thing that it does is it makes the proposal much stronger, because people have had multiple times to give input into it, and then you've had a chance to actually like assimilate the feedback and then make your own proposal stronger. So that's what collaborative writing is. So the mindset shift that I made at Facebook is that the only version of a document that matters is the final document that goes into a product review. all of the 50 versions that are there that are there before, I'm not going to be ashamed of those things. And because what I really want is the final review to go really well. And as long as that happens, everybody remembers only that. People don't remember the 50 shitty versions before that. But if you didn't get those feedbacks, one of those shitty versions is what goes into the product review. So that's a mindset shift for collaborative writing. And then the other thing to think about is disagreements are good. So the only thing that's worse than lack of alignment is the perception that there's alignment. It's when people actually like think that we're aligned, but actually like, you don't have real alignment and it falls apart in the review. People bring the disagreements into the product review with leaders. That's when you fail. So you want to have these disagreements earlier in the process so you can reconcile them and actually like take a aligned perspective to leaders to actually like make decisions. And the last thing is positive intelligence. It's about, are you in the game or not? Are you thinking about what you can do right at this moment to move things forward? Or are you thinking about what happened yesterday or actually like 30 minutes ago where you failed or somebody said something and that's got distracted? Or actually like you're fearful of what might happen in this review and you're not actually like working on the thing. And that's fundamentally what positive intelligence is. Can you actually like switch from a failure 30 seconds ago, put that aside and figure out what the next steps are and actually like just go forward and do that? One of the persons that actually like does this incredibly well is Asha Sharma, who's now the CEO of Instacart. She was my manager for a little bit. And she can go into a leadership review, maybe like have things go poorly. She can come outside and then just like turn on a switch and then say, okay, here are the 3 things that we need to do next. And she was incredible at it. And I learned that from her and I want to actually like get better at it. Then what are reviews for? I think that this is fundamentally like what we all do, right? I mean, we want to drive alignment and then we want to get leadership buy-in for something. We are actually like trying to get momentum for some projects of ours. Fundamentally, the mindset to think about is that leads at different levels in the organization are here to help you and your team to be successful. And we need to leverage them. And what do they really do? They actually like do a few things. One, raise the bar on the products your team is building. They need to edit the products that the company ships. And they need to help with resources and escalations to unblock the team. And that's fundamentally what their job is. And our mindset needs to be that, hey, how do we actually like make sure that one, we get the input from the lead so that we don't make mistakes. 2, we actually like get the help that we need so we build better products. That's a mindset shift to have. It's not about actually like proving who we are or actually like our worth, but it's about building better products. Then the second thing is that it actually like is a way to get alignment and stay in alignment and keep our commitments going. So I think that that's the fundamental thing. What game are we playing? Making sure that we're aligned on that. How are we defining winning? And are we aligned on that? And then actually like, are we on track and actually course correcting if necessary? And I think that's fundamentally like what leadership reviews do. Having the right cadence of these leadership reviews gets you like get alignment and then stay in alignment. And then in order for actually leaders to give us good input and make strong decisions, the review material needs to be super crisp. And leaders are spending 10 minutes reading a document and actually like trying to internalize something that you've thought about deeply for months and actually like make strong decisions. And they can do that only when the material is super crisp. And they have great skills, but it's our job to make sure that we actually like are giving them the material to make those decisions well. And then the last thing about leadership reviews is balanced advocacy. Leaders, again, need to believe that I'm willing to do the right thing for the group rather than actually like push my own agenda. So I think that's fundamentally what it boils down to. Leaders need to trust you. And the way that they trust you is that, are you like speaking about both sides of actually like the pros that we get if we win over here and the downsides of actually like doing something equally enough? And are you bringing them up to the table so that they can make informed decisions? Are you hiding things? And I think that that's fundamentally like how you earn the trust of leaders. So you need to make sure that you are framing the decision really well. You're calling out all of the risks that are there very clearly. You are saying that, hey, this could be a big win, and here are some downsides that are there, and you're clearly calling them out, and you're presenting it in a balanced way, and have your own recommendations on what you think we should be doing. And that's when you earn the trust of the leaders. We are actually like not over here trying to be salespersons. We're actually like trying to make sure that the company makes really great decisions. And that's when you earn the trust of leaders. And then When things are actually like taking longer or not going your way, take a step back and refocus on the outcomes that you want. Slow down your speed to bring everybody along. So there is very few cases where ruining your relationships to actually like go fast is actually going to work out well for you in your career. It's always better to slow down to make sure that you're bringing all of the people along for the ride and making sure that people are aligned. Have clear people outcomes, making sure that actually like everybody feeling like they were respected and they were part of the process is actually like a win by itself, along with actually getting the decisions that you want. So think about that. And then some common gotchas. I'm going to close with this, which is I've made all of these mistakes. I've tried to go faster than what my collaborators and stakeholders wanted to go with, the velocity that they wanted to go. And there were times where I've gone slower than what my collaborators and stakeholders have wanted to go. And both of those are actually like failure cases for me. And then there's overlap in people's expectations, and then you don't actually clearly align on who is doing what upfront. Not aligning across multiple levels of the organization, knowing which level of the organization does this decision need to be get made at, and making sure that you're actually like working through all of the layers in between. Not having enough back channel communication with leaders so that you know what their thinking is, so that you can actually like get that into place. Having too much back channel communication that you're not doing the product thinking, but you're actually like just putting their thinking into the document. So all of these are actually like gotchas. And the last thing is that your partners being surprised when content actually like comes into leadership reviews. I mean, all of these are gotchas. So I'm going to stop over here. So 5 principles that and some tips on actually like how you could improve influence with authority.
Thanks, Satish. This was great. I wish I had access to this at the start of my career. I think we've all made sort of similar mistakes, and this entire framework in terms of thinking about each of these areas is super helpful for me personally, and then I'm sure it's helpful for everyone on the call as well. We have a few questions, of course, so we'll start off with that. I know there are a few people on the call, and if you still haven't had a chance to submit your questions, feel free to drop them in chat or in the Q&A, and we'll try and get to them towards the end of this session. So I think the first question that we got, so for context, some of these questions came in at the time when registrations happened, and those are the ones that I have, and then I've added a couple in there that I personally had as well. So Satish, your first question is, how do you overcome imposter syndrome, and how do you go from like when you freshly joined a company to going from like having that feeling of being an imposter to building those relationships? I think you touched upon this quite a lot in your talk. So, just like maybe 3 points that you touch upon, and then we can go to the next one.
Sure. So I think imposter syndrome is interesting from the perspective that everybody has it. So I think that maybe that's the first part of it to think about. And then how do you overcome the imposter syndrome? So what I would highly recommend is journaling. And here's the mental model for how I journal. So imposter syndrome is like a broad term, but you can actually think about what emotions am I feeling right at this moment. And that emotion could be that, hey, I fear that I'm going to fail, or my review content is not going to be well received by leads, or I'm not going to be able to ship this product on time. So there's a fear that actually like is there. So first, articulating that on paper is actually the first place to start. Then you can actually like answer that with, hey, what are the facts over here? How much of this is true? How much of this is actually like assumptions that I'm making? What are those assumptions? And then you can say, okay, now that I know what my fear is and what the real facts are and what are alternative perspectives could that be over here? And then you can say, how do I mitigate these risks that are there that are coming out of this? And what actions can I do to actually like take care of that? If you think that, hey, my material may not be ready yet, so you can actually get input from 4 other people who are slightly ahead of you as product managers or your managers and their peers. And then you get actually like feedback that's going to help you mitigate that fear. If it is about shipping the product on time, you can actually like talk. There are a few different set of actions that you can have. So fundamentally it comes down to journaling. What is your emotion, the real emotion that you're going through? What are the facts? What are the assumptions you're making? What are the alternate perspectives, and what next actions can you do? And if you do that, you're going to be able to like deal with it. And everybody has it.
Awesome. That's super helpful. I can definitely share that I had it too when I first joined. Like each of my roles and in the first few months had to get from there to building credibility, so on and so forth. The second question that we have is around how do you avoid scenarios where you're expected to do something, but you don't actually agree with this direction? And how do you help sort of push back, or how do you help communicate this with your team, so on and so forth? I think the example in here was like the penultimate one, which was CEOs having to fire staff, which we've seen a lot recently. But perhaps it's more about like product decisions that you disagree with, but are forced to go with.
Yeah. So I think fundamentally, when there are decisions that have been made, the good faith part of actually like thinking about this is somebody has gone through a thoughtful exercise of making this decision. And then let's say that there are strategy decisions that get made like a couple of levels above us. So the first thing that we can actually like do is that we clearly understand what is the rationale for why that decision was made. And actually like for us to be able to replay that back, well, the clear rationale for actually like why that decision was made. And then the second part of it is to never take the approach of, hey, it's not my decision. So in some form, a lot of times product managers play the role of being middle managers in a company. And basically when we share decisions in some form, it is also our decisions. And sometimes we might have a different perspective on what that decision is, but we need to like disagree and commit. And that committing part of actually like that process is to say, hey, here is how leadership thought about this problem. This is what the trade-offs were, and this is why they made the decision. And it's a hard decision, but we all need to get behind it. And I think that that is a narrative to land very cleanly when we are actually like middle managers in organizations and leaders in that layers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The next one is, this one is coming in from the Q&A in Zoom. So what are some ways to influence when one is on a tight deadline? I think you touched upon like, having enough time, but oftentimes we don't have that luxury. So how do you go about influencing folks? These may be cross-functional counterparts, so on and so forth, or cross-org, perhaps.
Yeah. So I've made like a bunch of mistakes with respect to this, and I'm going to share a couple of perspectives on this one. One is that sometimes it's really important to understand what are real deadlines and then what are not real deadlines. I think that that's like step one. So you need to like know, is this a movable date or not? Then the second part of it is to understand the magnitude of the change that we're actually like trying to make. And because some of these things you can influence in a short amount of time, and then some of these things need a longer period of time. And if you know that it's a large decision, requires a larger number of people to get behind it, and is a paradigm shift from where you currently are, then you need to have the hard conversation with respect to the timeline and then say, hey, this is a pretty big shift for the team. We need to do this right versus doing it fast, because we will get this presumption of commitment, but we won't get true commitment from people. And you need to have that conversation with leaders. But if it's a smaller thing, then you can actually like get alignment in a short amount of time. And every time I have made the mistake of trying to make large decisions in short amounts of time, there's always been lack of commitment from all of the people that need to actually like get behind a decision, and it surfaces later on. So I think that that's the only input that I can share, which is figure out how big of a decision it is and fight the battle upfront if you need more time, because there is always a chance that you can push out the date and you might have more time to get commitment.
Awesome. Thank you. The other question that we have here in chat from Gaurav is, he says, thank you for the information. How do you advise PMs work and develop influence with difficult senior engineering managers or engineers who are critical for the project, but very difficult to connect with?
Yeah. So I think this is like a case this is a question of case by case. Because the difficulty with respect to connecting is dependent on people. But I've had my fair share of working with senior leaders and also people uh, who have different styles of operating than me. So I think that that's the fundamental thing. So I think it really comes down to uh, what do people care about. So I think that that's the starting point to start with. Uh, so you need to deeply understand what are the outcomes. What does winning look like for someone? I think that's fundamentally like where it comes down to. Hey, what does winning look like for you? What does massive success look like for you this half? Is like a great question to actually like start understanding people. Then the second part of it is based on what the hierarchical differences are. What are you personally trying to accomplish this half is like a slightly different variant of it. So what would winning for you personally look like in addition to actually like what does winning for the team look like? Seeking to understand that part of it actually like helps you uh, realize what the triggers are for people and actually like uh, what drives them on a day-to-day basis. And then the third part of it is actually like what is the style of operation in some form for people. uh, and that's like the third thing to really understand. And in order for you to be able to do any of these things, you need to be able to find common ground with people. So how can you go from from a conversation with people with a person and then actually like find one thing that you deeply admire about them? I think that that's a starting point to actually like uh, build a relationship with someone. So for example, there was a very challenging super senior engineer that everybody thought was challenging, but fundamentally the thing that I admired about him was that he wanted the team to not waste time in a direction that you would eventually find out a year later that it was going to fail. It's like, hey, let us ask all of the hard questions now so that we build more confidence in this plan for the next year. That is what I deeply admired about him. And I just would repeat that to him every time I chatted with him. Hey, thank you for the hard questions. I'd go into a review. He would ask a lot of hard questions. Sometimes it felt like the review was getting derailed. But after the review, my recurring message to him was, thank you for the hard questions. I would want these questions to come from you today than actually like from some VP to come in a review 2 months down the road. And it's helping us prepare. And you can find these common grounds with people. What do you deeply admire about them? Give them praise for that. And that actually like helps you start to connect with these people and then creates the opportunity for you to find out what makes them tick for their own personal self and for their teams, and what is their style of operation. How can you help them and how can they help you? And you figure those things out. But it all starts with actually like establishing trust in some way with them.
Yeah, thank you for the super detailed answer. I totally agree. I think, finding common grounds on a lot of things, even perhaps outside of work, is very easy to do, and then building up from there. The next question here was around, at what stage do you decide that a person cannot be influenced? Is there a situation where, you had to make that determination, and what did you do about it then?
Yeah. So I think so the one time that I've been reading this book called How Minds Change. It's a fantastic book on the human psychology of how do people form opinions and how the mind fills up things, creates opinions on things that they have not thought about. How does the environment determine their biases and all of that stuff? It's a great book, worth reading. But I think fundamentally, what I've come to realize is that there's a point in time where the environment itself is not suitable for that shift in direction that you're proposing. And that is the point to give up. So if it is like one single person that you're actually like not able to influence, or a couple of people, then you can think about who are the other people who can really influence them. If it may not be you directly influencing them, you can influence somebody else who can actually like influence them. And you need to like figure out the network effects of how to make that happen. So let's say that there's a senior engineer who I don't have a great relationship with, but actually like I have relationships with somebody in between who I can influence, who can then go and influence that other person. I can actually like work through my network to actually like make that happen. And that can only happen when there's a critical mass in the network who actually like buys into your idea. And the time where I would give up is when I realized that the whole ecosystem is not actually like going to buy into this idea, and pushing it up is actually like going to be like pushing a rock up the boulder at that point in time. And you need to find an environment where that idea is going to flourish. So I think that that's fundamentally when I would give up. Does this environment and the set of incentives for that environment enable this new idea to flourish or not?
Awesome. I think you mentioned a book that you're reading. There's a question related to books or podcasts. So Vasu asks, what are the top 3 books or podcasts that we should be following related to this topic or in general that you would recommend? And she loves the presentation.
Thank you. So I think books, I think, let me just like look for around. So I have like, so I think there's like so there's books or podcasts for different things. So if you want to improve your emotional intelligence or positive intelligence, I highly recommend a course by Shirzad Shamin called Positive Intelligence. So highly recommend that. He's also written a book called Positive Intelligence. So it's a great book for how do we deal with our own emotions, because our emotions get in the way of influencing. I think that that's like a great book around that piece of it. So highly recommend that. Then maybe I can actually like send a link out that you can put out. So I've curated a list of about 200 books on different topics of leadership, everything from listening to speaking precisely to crucial conversations. So I can actually like share the list of 200 books.
Yeah, that would be awesome for this group and community to have access to. So I can reach out to you after to get access to that. I think a couple of the other questions were around malicious scenarios. So I think first one was, how do you deal with toxic managers? For example, I have a manager who lies a lot, even though it's recorded. How do you deal with a tough person like this, and what do you do about it?
So I think like it's all of these career decisions are personal decisions, and they're hard because everybody's life circumstances are different. So I don't want to be like flippant about actually like any advice that I give around that. But I think in general, you'd want to work for people who, one, are rooting for you, who are pushing you to achieve more than you think you can possibly achieve on your own. And these managers are hard to find. And basically, I think that there's who are great managers that you want to work for, and then who are managers that you don't want to work for, and you need to know those boundaries for yourself. And as long as actually like you have managers in between that band, you should actually like continue to work for them. And when actually like they fall out of that band, I think that it's worth looking at other opportunities, because basically like over time you will find something where you have a great manager.
I think whoever asked this question is definitely in a tough spot. So that advice is great for. I think that they'll definitely benefit from this one. Let's go to the Q&A section. I think great presentation, Satish, says Aruna. I had a question on lead time and detailed planning, which you mentioned in this talk. Are there any resources that you recommend to build that muscle better?
So a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing is actually a couple of things. One is by watching great PMs do this for larger problems. So I don't have like a template that I can share, but I'm putting together some templates out of this for future. So in the future, I'm thinking about teaching a course on this. And when I do that, I'm going to be pulling together templates for each of these sections. But I don't have it right now. But when I do, I can actually like share it on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And then I guess 2 questions from the chat. What do you do when you don't get support from leaders in terms of resources, in spite of being aware of product roadmap delays? There is another product which is consistently prioritized over mine. but how do I push to influence these decisions better? This is after 9 months of calling out risks.
Just thinking about it for a second. So I think it depends from organization to organization, but in a lot of organizations that I have worked in, at some VP level, there is a common metric that is being used to measure what is the output that we're going to generate if we make these investments. There's an ROI spreadsheet in some form saying, hey, in an ads product, it's going to be something around what is the incremental revenue per headcount in some form that we can generate. Or actually, like if it is some consumer part of it, like what is the key metric that is normalized across all groups that actually like is being used. So that's typically how I have seen decisions get made when it comes to resourcing and staffing. And then actually like it comes down to what is the metric that your organization is using when they're making these decisions, because eventually somebody is accountable for the output that is being generated by the investments that we are making. So I think that understanding that and then framing your ask in terms of that is probably like the thing that I would think about.
That makes a lot of sense. Last question here from the Q&A. How do you handle responsibility apportioning? For example, some teams need to take responsibility for an outcome, but they don't, and it reflects back poorly on the team.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question. So I think this comes down to setting the right structures in place where in some form, if it is a large enough initiative, are there like leaders of both of those organizations where you have joint reviews with, where you're getting alignment? So let's say that your org and the other org have some dependencies on each other, then actually like doing a joint review with the leads of both of those organizations at the right level, appropriate level, is actually like a way to get commitment that is in writing. And then when that commitment falls out, you have that review with that same set of leadership saying, hey, like we said, we're going to do this. Like, how do we deal with this? How can you stop it up? So that joint reviews are a way to get that thing done.
Awesome. Thank you. We're almost at time. We have a lot more questions that came in when people signed up, but we'll save them for another day when we get another 30 minutes with you, Satish. Thank you for joining us today. This talk was remarkable. Learned a lot around, just how I can build more influence in my day-to-day. And I wish I had access to these materials earlier.
Thank you for having me. And it was great chatting about a topic that I really care about.
Yes, thank you both so much. This was incredible. I don't think we've ever had such an active Q&A. So I think that speaks to the amount of people that are appreciating and learning from this Influence Without Authority. Okay, so I did have a question in the chat. If this will go live or live anywhere, it will live in our website indefinitely. It'll go live tomorrow. You can reference this back. I will most likely link the book suggestions, the podcast suggestions to that blog. So we'll be looking out for that on our website. And again, thank you so much. Y'all have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thanks.